Good evening. Welcome to the June 20th, 2022 regular session school board meeting. At this time, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Veronica, please call the roll.
Mr. Weigling?
Here.
Mrs. Dyer?
Here.
Mr. Ratliff? Mr. McInnes?
Here.
Mrs. McKay?
Here. At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to introduce our interim superintendent. This is Steve Mazzy, and I encourage you all to get to know him. He'll be here at least through December 31st, right?
Yes, ma'am.
But we can extend that. Anyway, please welcome him. And Steve, if you have a few words to say.
Sure. I just wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to serve the student, staff, and community of the Marion schools. I'm not going to get into this is your life, long dissertation or anything, but I thought just to have kind of an idea, this is my 37th year in education. I've been married for 37 years. So I have two adult children. One is a social worker for Nationwide Children's Hospital, and the other one is in construction sales in the Columbus area. I've been a teacher. I've coached, assistant athletic director at the high school level, middle school assistant principal, elementary principal, middle school principal, assistant superintendent, director of human resources, and a superintendent. So the things that I deal with on a day-to-day basis are not unique into what I've kind of experienced before in my previous positions. I'm proud to say that I'm retired from the Ohio Air National Guard. I spent a little over 20 years. I was a rank of Chief Master Sergeant with some people that are military. That's an E9. I had 2 deployments for Iraqi freedom, and I'm proud of that. And my brother spent 30 years active duty. He was a command Chief Master Sergeant, so a step higher than me. And my dad also served, so we kind of felt that was the legacy of ours. So I'm proud of that. I'm proud simultaneously to have also served in a school setting for this many years. So now again, it's just the opportunity to be here and do what I can for the student, staff, and community of the Marion City Schools. Try to get things kicked off this year and do the best job we can for our kids. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay. Steve, if you want to help me, we're going to recognize the spring track athletes. All right. I know a few of you guys are here, and this is a certificate of presidential pride to acknowledge your hard work at the 2022 state track meet in 4x100. So I have Brendan. Sean Jefferson, Trinity Keith, Caden Back.
Good job.
Guys, thank you for coming. Keep up the good work.
Good job.
Nice job, guys.
Well, what about coach? MOAC Coach of the Year, Track Coach of the Year. Second year in a row. Second year in a row.
Thank you, Tara.
I didn't want him to get all dressed up for nothing.
Yeah, I know, I'm glad. Good job.
All right. All right. Light back on. I love it when our kids are here. Thank you. And feel free, you don't have to stay for this whole meeting, but you're welcome to. All right, we come now to the treasurer's report. This is the item A, board minute approval for the meetings 516, 531, 61, and 68. Do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
I'll second.
Discussion? Call the roll, please.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. Item B, financial approvals. Motion to approve the following financial items: the May 22 financial reports, fiscal year 22 appropriations, Exhibit A, fiscal year 22 revenue revisions, Exhibit B, fiscal year 22 estimated transfers and advances, Exhibit C, sent temporary appropriations for fiscal year 23 at 25% of fiscal year 22. Year-end transactions allow the treasurer to approve any necessary year-end transactions as needed to modify all budget accounts to bring into balance, amend appropriations, and advance monies to all funds with deficit balances on June 30th, 2022. Advances and changes will be reported at the July meeting, along with final appropriations. Donations for guitars for the 21st Century After School program valued at $925 from Rick Martin with Kids Musical Fundraising Group, Jams for Jim, and $4,000 for Grant Robotics Marion Community Foundation. Do I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second. Or did you second?
Discussion? All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. So now we come to the hearing of the public. And before you appear, you'll see some guidelines, and I just kind of want to go over a few. Item A, this is a business meeting. Anyone having a legitimate interest in the actions of the board may participate during the designated public participation portion of the meeting. Attendees must register their intention to participate, and they may not register others to speak during public participation. Each statement made by a participant shall be limited to 3 minutes duration, and then you can read over the rest of that. So I will call your names, and then you'll go to the mic over here and state your name and your concern. So we'll start with Betsy Ratliff.
Good evening. As you all know, I'm Betsy Ratliff, and I am the MEA Vice President for the next 2 weeks, and then my role transfers over to someone else. So this is the last time I'm speaking on behalf of our staff. But I want you to know that just because we have a change in leadership and lots of staff, that the concerns that we've brought all year, and in fact for the last several years, don't go away. And so you have an opportunity now to choose leaders who are going to actually take action. They're going to listen to the staff. They're going to listen to parents, and I will be one of those parents because I am still in the community and my daughter still is attending Harding High School. So decisions, when they are made, probably should be addressed to the people who are going to be affected. My case, the reason why I've resigned is because there was no decision brought to me until after the fact. So my role as gifted coordinator is now done. Fortunately, I had a company willing to snack me up and take me. But if that had not been the case, I would have been sent right back to the classroom. And if I did not have a continuing contract, I would have been done. And so that's not how we should do business. I've been with Marion City Schools a long time and have given a lot of love and passion to the kids here and the staff here. And I want you to do better. I just want you to do better. I want you to choose people who are going to do the right thing, who are going to listen to our staff, who are coming in on the summertime, hoping that you will make good choices, make good decisions. And our students are the ones who suffer. Our staff suffers. So while it's no longer going to be me up here speaking as a staff member who's begging and pleading for you to listen, I am going to be a parent, and I am still going to ask for the same things, because my child and all the other children in Marion City deserve so much better than what you've given them.
Thank you. All right, next up is Sarah Black.
My name is Sarah Black. Can you hear me? Mm-hmm. I grew up in Marion. I live on Brightwood Drive, and that is the gateway to Harding High School. So all during the 1960s and 70s, we loved Friday Night Lights. It was so exciting. Cars would park up and down our street. Hundreds of people would walk to the stadium. We could see the lights. We could hear the cheers. We could hear the band. And there was a symbiotic relationship at that point in our neighborhood and with the football game. Jump to 2016, I moved from New York back home, back to Brightwood Drive. I'm living in my childhood home taking care of Mom. But come fall, all of a sudden, scary fireworks erupted. And I want to make sure I help you understand that the fireworks in our neighborhood sound completely different than the fireworks in the stadium. You're in a bubble, it's exciting, there's noise, you want to be a part of it. But on our side, it's terrifying. We can't be outside having a party in our backyard. We cannot go to sleep until the game is over. And you also now have a new sound system which penetrates our neighborhood. It's like having someone in my backyard with me. We love the Prexies. We love Harding High School, but we love our homes, and we want to somehow have a committee or a conversation that includes us with these enormous changes that you're making. And I just want to also explain that I've started a conversation with Sean Kearns, whom I totally respect and like, and he and I have been discussing this on and off, but I think it should be a little bit broader. And I hope that we can come to some conclusions before the football season starts. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Alan Vanskoy.
Hi, my name's Al Vanskoy. I live over on Forest Street, close to where Sarah lives. We've noticed an increase in the noise from the fireworks here in the last 3 or 4 or 5 years. The biggest problem is we had a little Jack Russell, and it would scare the dog to no end. And you know, 4th of July, that's the biggest day of the year where the dog warden has a whole bunch of dogs that shouldn't be there because they're scared of the fireworks. It even scares me. It's because it's a random thing. Anytime over about a 3 hour and 15-minute period, they can go off and you get calm after about an hour. It sounds like gunfire at the school. I'm really surprised they're allowed to have a Class D firework, an explosive like that, on school property. Think of all the things that's happened at different schools here in the last year. The shootings. It sounds very much like what a shooting would sound like at a school. I would like to see quiet fireworks. I've seen those over there where they've shot fireworks up. Virtually no noise. It's all sparkles. I don't know if it's magnesium that burns real bright, real pretty, but it's not loud and noisy. Another thing is over there in the woods, usually in the fall, you have turkey vultures that will nest over there. there's laws, state and federal laws, that protect them from harassment. You really can't do much about it. About the only thing you can do is hang something that looks like one. This is a solution one of the other towns have had to move them out of there. Hang one upside down in the woods, and they see that, and that scares them off. But once they've, nested for the night, and it's dark out, they can't find their way back to, they're not good at night. That's just something to consider too. I don't know if anybody's gonna mess with the laws or whatever, but that's something to consider, with the turkey vultures that are over there. I don't know, it's just, I'd like to see the school maybe get something different, more localized at the thing, fire, flames and stuff. You see those at some of the national games. Get something like that. Spend your money on something that you don't have to keep spending money on, I guess. That's basically it. I'd just like to see the school be a better neighbor than, like kind of used to be, I guess. We've lived at our house for like 33 years, and it was never like this. I'd just like to see it get back to kind of the way it was, where you heard the band, you seen the lights in the distance, and you walk over and watch some of it if you want from a distance. I don't know. It was nice then. It upsets me now. So that's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you very much. Jim Bechtel?
Jim Bechtel, I live here in Marion. Greetings to everyone, to all school board members, and I'd like to thank you for your time, your treasure, your dedication in shaping the future of the leaders of our country. Regarding the disturbing direction of our nation, it is my hope that you will consider our schools to be institutions of education and not indoctrination into political correctness and so-called progressive ideologies that would be insensitive to conservative values. A curriculum that would reflect the value of family with a stable foundation in God and country, a bedrock of morality with respect to the sanctity of life and the rights of others. That no one be deemed racist by an unproven theory, but according to the teachings of Dr. King, that we all be judged by the content of our character and not the sins of long ago generations. If other concepts of faith are offered, I would like to see the Bible once again taught in school, as it was the main text used in this fledgling nation long ago. That there would be classes on the U.S. Constitution, Bill of Rights, and even the Federalist Papers, with patriotism and pride in our country once again held in high regard. And finally, considering the unstable times that we live in and seemingly disregard for human life, that you would embrace armed guards at all schools with full security locks on all doors, and conceal and carry with training for all teachers who wish to participate. And as this is as much a prayer as it is a statement, I ask it in Jesus' name. Thank you.
James Horton? There we go.
Hello, my name is James Horton, and I live at 538 4th Street. And I would like to thank you guys for your hard work. I know it's not easy to be on the board. You only make about 30% of the people happy, and about 50% mad, and 50%, there's 20%. You can only make 20% of people happy. So I want to thank you for all your hard work. It's recognized. I want to thank you for the stadium. It looks amazing. The concrete work that you guys did a couple of years ago, I'm so glad we didn't tear it down and rebuild it. It looks awesome. The blacktop that you guys just completed this last week looks great. My wife and I, we run by that facility 4 or 5 times a week. We run, like physically run. And my wife and I, we've lived in Marion now for 5 years when we bought our home. My wife has been part of the community in a nonprofit community aspect for the last 8 years. So we are completely bought into Marion. We love Marion. We feel like Marion's our mission. I want to thank you for coming all the way from Westerville to be part of our community. I know you're not Marion made, but I adopt you into our community. So now you're Marion made. So I want to thank you for coming here. I want to thank you for your service. I think it's awesome. Just like my neighbors have been discussing with fireworks, it's gotten pretty loud over the last couple of years. Normally, just to give you an idea, it would be once per game, once at the beginning of the game, and if we won, which wasn't very often in the beginning, last year we made the playoffs, it would be if we won. So possible 10 times per game. Now, it's not 10 different fireworks, it's fireworks 10 different times. So that's, 3 fireworks, 4 fireworks at the beginning and the end of the game. Not a problem. I mean, it was a little bit obnoxious, but we could handle our dogs. Last year, there was a change, and I don't know if you remember the change, but it was after every touchdown. There was 3 or 4 every touchdown. You want to know how many touchdowns we scored at home last year? 24.33. I added it up. That means 24 times plus 10 times we had fireworks. And we really couldn't plan around, like, can we leave the night with our dogs? Can we keep them here? We had to get them trazodone. We had to go to the vet, pay money out of our pocket to make sure that they were kept away, safe, and sleeping in their cages and didn't tear things up. But talking about military, and like I said, thank you for your service. PTSD is a real thing. And people that served in Iraq and Afghanistan, it can cause a lot of issues with children. And so we're not asking, at least I'm not asking, for it to be completely gone. I'm not against fireworks, quieter. And you know what, you guys, I didn't mention this. You have the really cool LED display lights now. You could turn those things on and off as much as you want. Now, you might want to make a disclaimer at the beginning of the game, hey, there might be lighting for people that have seizures. They assume a lot of liability when they go to the games. Unfortunately, because of where we live, we don't have the option. Like my neighbor said, and I'll just finish up for you real fast. Thank you so much. I will email you guys personally tonight to give you my statement. If this isn't the proper format, please let me know where I need to go to get it to the right people. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for coming. I appreciate all the comments. We're going now to item 6, agenda confirmation.
There was someone else who had signed up to speak.
Oh, there was did you fill out a sheet?
No.
Was it regarding the fireworks?
Yes.
Did you, if you wanted to step just quickly? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Robert Peters. I live on Brightwood Drive near the stadium, and I have a small dog, a Shih Tzu Chewy. When we got him, I won't say he was never skittish to loud noises, but after the very first fireworks, he is now deathly afraid of loud noises. It is now so bad that whenever there's a storm with lightning or that sort of thing, he goes in panic mode. I have to actually go to a closet with the lights out and a loud fan outside the closet to make noise to calm him down. And I may be there for hours. And now it's not just when the fireworks are going on, it's when there's thunder, when there's a loud bang somewhere near us. So it can be a real issue for dogs, and in my case, whenever there's loud noises like that now, not just when the fireworks are on, but he's worse after the fireworks, is I'm spending hours in a dark closet. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Additions or deletions to the agenda? Do I have any? Okay, approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
Second.
Discussion. All right, call the roll, please.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. All right, old business, student behaviors. Do we have anything to discuss?
Sure, I'll mention that. Obviously coming into this role, I was updated on some of the initiatives and things that were happening in the district, and student behavior was one of those. So kind of taking on this role, and we're still trying to hire a lot of staff members. So frankly, it's not, it's on the front burner, but maybe it's moved back a little bit behind one of the pots or something. But I assure you that I'll be following up with the staff and the folks that were involved with that, talking to the administration of which who was involved, and moving forward with looking into what are the major concerns, what are some of the things we can do about it to make sure that, teachers can't teach if everything in the classroom is kind of, in turmoil. Students can't learn if everything in the classroom is kind of in turmoil. So if none of that is happening, it makes things hard all the way up the line. So I assure you that I understand that, and I'll be resurrecting and/or continuing with what's been started. So.
Thank you.
And that's where Mr. Mazzy and I met this morning, afternoon, a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate that it's student behaviors is on the agenda again. I very much appreciate that. And I know there was obviously talk of a task force being implemented. I know we're in transition now, so as Mr. Mazzy just said, it looks like we'll pursue that in whatever form it might take. And then later also in section G, not too long from now, we'll be addressing some of the changes made in the student code of conduct. So I'll save the rest of my comments for that time too. Mm-hmm. So.
And I appreciate those comments. And sorry, just one more. Because I'd met with Jen today, and we had talked at we had our first restorative practices meeting/training, and there were about 30 folks in attendance. And I know there's another one scheduled for July, so we'll be following up in that regard also. I didn't know if there was anything else.
It's still open. July meeting of people will have
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we'll go on to item 8. And if it's possible, I would like to make, have us do a motion for items A through G. Unless something needs to be pulled out.
Do you want to do it through G because Ted can't vote on G?
Oh, nope. Items A through F. We'll do one motion if that's all right. Okay? All right. So I need a motion. I'll make the motion. I need a second.
I'll second that.
All right. Discussion. All right, so this is to approve item A, OHSAA renewal. Item B, overnight 8th grade trip to Washington, D.C. next May 16th through the 19th. An overnight football camp trip. That is the 20th through the 22nd of this month. Overnight cheer camp, 7/26, return date 7/28. MEA contract. Item F, handbook review and updates.
Or is that G?
We're not doing G yet.
Okay,
We
correct.
have to
You
pull
got
that out.
it. Yep.
Mm-hmm. All right. All right.
Kelly, do you mind if I?
Sure.
Okay. I just want to thank, I know Betsy's here, obviously part of the leadership of the MEA. I know I've been through a few contract negotiations myself. It's never easy. I just want to thank the MEA and Jamie. I'm still learning names, but I met with Jamie the most so far after coming here. But thank them for the administration for the collaborative way in which that got done. I know that sometimes it can leak into the school year, and that never settles well with folks, but kind of have that behind and move forward and concentrate on the business at hand and the education of our children, I think is really important. It's just, you know, kind of one less thing. So I want to publicly thank you for that and thank the administration that worked on that. So thank you.
And I'd like to thank both teams for working so hard to get to agreement. I really appreciate everyone's hard work. All right. We have a motion. Second, do we need discussion? Any further discussion? All right. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes?
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Motion carried. Item G, extension of days for Jennifer Lane, 9 days for the 22-23 school year. Do I have a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Okay, I'll second. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Abstain.
Motion carried. All right. Now we come to new business, and we're going to do a sweeping motion from item A through GG. That's how many alphabet letters we've gone through tonight. Do I have a motion for all those agreements and contracts?
Also move.
I'll second.
I'd like to remove
Oh,
letter H, taxes,
H.
from the sweeping motion.
Okay. All right. So
And that was my mistake before. I
That's
must have been
okay.
looking at the one I got from
That's fine.
when I was on vacation.
Okay.
In terms of the handbook review and updates, so I know we just
Okay.
passed that, so
Anything else?
I'll make statements later.
Just item H?
Just H?
Yeah, I'm double checking.
He's double checking.
H, letter X for Studies Weekly.
Okay, hang on.
And this was through
Okay.
which double letters, please?
GG.
Wait, if you, X, okay.
H, X.
Yeah, I'd like to remove AA from this, Apex.
Okay. Okay.
I have only one question for the nutrition group, so
Okay.
that'll be very quick. That's EE.
Okay.
And lastly, GG, the equity audit as well.
Okay.
Did you want to remove the nutrition group?
Yeah, and again, it
Okay.
should be a 30-second question, I would
Okay.
imagine.
Okay. So this would be for items A through G, I through Z. No, I don't. Now I lost track. I through
W?
I through W. And then Y through Z. AA, excuse me, BB through DD. And H,
FF.
right?
FF.
D, no, AA through D.
Easier to just say A through FF minus.
I'm trying to think differently. Huh. So after EE, then it's, sorry.
Yeah, so Apex is the AA, nutrition group is EE, and
Yeah.
equity audit is GG. All the other doubles are.
Okay, so it would be,
Yep.
all right. So we've got the motion right? Okay, I'm not going to say it again. All right. So on the first motion, A through G, do I have a
Are
motion?
you going to do everything except for the ones we pulled out?
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do
Okay.
that.
All right, so I have Ted as a first on that.
Okay,
We need a second.
that sounds fine. I think I made a second.
Okay.
Okay. Discussion? Call the roll?
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Motion carried. Item H, Taxis Institute. Superintendent recommends approval of an agreement between Marion City Schools and Taxis Institute for Paxis supplies and training for new teachers. This is $18,090, and it's paid for by Title V rural schools. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. Discussion?
It's been brought up in the past, and I know in January, this is when we had January or February, where the board did not vote to approve a certain aspect of PACS in terms of a professional development. 12 hours later, alternative funding was found, and we proceeded with PACS, even with or the lack of an affirmative vote by the board. I do understand, and certain teachers have reached out to me, that there are some teachers that, and I'll even say many, but I won't say most, that many teachers do appreciate PACS, they use it, is effective. But as far as the conversations I've had, the vast majority make the arguments that PACS really addresses Tier 1 behaviors instead of Tier 2 and 3, which, as we have heard from numerous staff members for months now, should be the focus of what we are trying to address, both in terms of our policy and the way that money is being spent. Again, we said no to this once before. I personally did, and alternative funding was sought and found rather quickly. This would be for $18,000 US dollars. And after the last PACS professional development, it was said by some teachers that, hey, that was the same thing we had 3 years ago. So I continued my stance, not necessarily just against all of PACS, but I think we have larger issues to be concerned with, and at an $18,000 price tag, I have definite concerns with it.
And I believe this is paid for by a Title V grant.
Mm-hmm.
So, all right. All right.
Did any of the teachers that you talked to offer an alternative? I know some teachers in some districts, some schools are still using Leader in Me.
PBIS as well. And
Yeah,
mm-hmm.
and I was at Taft. I saw only one teacher use it very effectively. So did they offer any alternative, and are they using it with fidelity? Or I'm just wondering.
No, and it's a legit question as well. As far as alternatives, PBIS was also brought up, which I know you have mentioned as well. Even, I don't want to say basic, because teaching, sometimes you have it or you don't, but there are certain, if you're struggling, there are other teachers who are able to, hey, have you tried this form of classroom management? You should try this method. So it wasn't necessarily we should use this program as opposed to PACS. It was, we are already equipped with it. The fact that they had been trained on it numerous times as well, that PBIS also covers that in terms of a similar approach. It wasn't necessarily bashing it, but it was also, I would say that the main argument was consistently, it's Tier 1 behavior, and we definitely need more support for Tier 2 and Tier 3. That's, if I would represent what I have been told.
And my only concern is that with the issue of students moving frequently from school to school, I would like to see something that each school uses and that each student is familiar with. So
Consistency throughout the district?
Yeah.
Okay.
So it would scare me if there wasn't a language that traveled with a child from Harrison to Hayes from Taft to wherever, so I'm leery of, I want us to all be on the same page, and it seems like PACS is that consistent. thing, so.
And I'm asking the questions in terms of, and Steve, I don't want to put you on the spot too early, or if Jen could mention stuff. Is the current approach right now, hey, building, whatever works best for you, or teachers, whatever works best for you? And then there's another program that we're also being used, I think was required by the state of Ohio, and I can't think of the acronym for it right now. Jen, can you comment on that in terms of?
So PBIS is the framework.
That's all,
it's not a program.
Mm-hmm.
So at the state of Ohio, everyone has to have a PBIS in place. So PACS or Leader in Me is just a part of that framework. So yeah, expectation is teachers will be using PACS. Prior to this year, you know, TAPT had their TAPT heroes. Everybody had kind of their own. Harrison did Leader in Me. And Harrison's continued Leader in Me, but they, a lot of teachers do partner with PACS. And PACS is tier 1, that's kind of the point of it, because, you know, we have to have tier 1, you know, serve everybody, and then obviously, you know, we have to have some tier 2 and tier 3 strategies. But yeah, I mean, expectations, we want to see PACS in K-5.
All right.
And this specific training would just be for new staff coming in, so it's not for the current staff that are not below.
And I get that that's when, then I heard when Kelly was reading as well, that to me it sounds that we've had PACS in the district for so long, do we not have a mentoring process where, I mean, that's where the sharing of, I'll never forget Sue Evans telling me, hey, just, you know, have your kids sit this way, or, and, you know, and Kathy Swanger, invaluable to me. That mentorship program, I know you've discussed it in terms of principals too, but I know it exists, and Ted verified that in terms of the teacher mentoring program is still very much alive and well, so. All right.
Okay. All right. Please call the roll, Veronica.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Weibling?
No.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Motion carried. All right, we'll go to item AA. Item AA is Apex. This is
Oh, we
for-
forgot X. X.
Oh, I'm sorry, X. Much apology. Okay. Item X, Studies Weekly. Dollar amount, $29,822.91. This is funded through CARES Act money. Superintendent recommends approval of agreements between Marion City Schools and Studies Weekly for supplemental materials to support science and social studies in grades K through 5. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Discussion.
The reason why I bring this up for Studies Weekly, again, I'm a former social studies teacher and I love science as well, so it's not that I'm against either one of these and don't think that they're not important. But we just passed a $500,000 measure for CKLA. And one of the strong suits of CKLA was that it was so good it will prepare our children for social studies and science. $500,000, and I listed off 10 or 11 different things. I said, you know, I voted for it in the end after meeting with members from both sides, Wonders and CKLA. And I was reassured that CKLA had everything. What we were getting, I don't want to misrepresent that as it's a magic pill that CKLA is going to solve all of our problems. That's not what people, that was not the bill of goods I was sold. So I don't want to misrepresent that. But that of the two choices, in fact, of the, 6 or 7 or 8 in terms of the ones that didn't make it to the final round, that CKLA was above and beyond the best reading curriculum available for our students. We saw some changes in terms of the first proposal that was over $1 million. That dropped down to about $500,000. I think it was still in the $600,000 range. And it was very clear to ask the questions. Are you sure that we're getting what we are paying for? Are teachers aware of, you know, what's not in the second proposal that was part of the first? And I was very clear that I did not want to hear that we need more supplements. This to me is, again, I was told science and social studies, CKLA, because Wonders didn't have it, and CKLA had all this stuff, so that's another reason. And now here we are a few months later, and there's a $30,000 price tag for supplements for social studies and science. And even as a formal social studies teacher, again, the $500,000 or $600,000, as far as I'm concerned, should be covering this. And I trust the teachers to make good of the materials that they are already receiving. So I cannot support another $30,000. And that's all I have for that.
Crystal.
I kind of add quick. So,
Sure.
you know, I appreciate that comment, Scott. I think when we're looking, and I can't speak for all the teachers, but CKLA is designed to be our core reading curriculum. On top of that, it integrates science and social studies topics. All of those topics aren't going to be specific to a grade level, but the bonus of that is going to build their background knowledge from K to 5. So Studies Weekly, I think, comes in to support those other standards that are grade level standards. And teachers don't have to use it just for science and social studies. They can pull in topics that support unison CKLA. So while yes, it's called Science and Social Studies Weekly, I think it can be used across the whole day for elementary teachers, as well as intervention time, enrichment time. So there are a lot of other benefits to that go along with CKLA.
High standards are kind of unique as far as like science and social studies are concerned too. So for like a publishing company to come out with something that would cover all the standards for reading plus Ohio standards for science and social studies, the publishing companies don't cater to Ohio. They cater to Texas and California typically. So yes, while it does cover some of the topics, but then it won't cover all. I don't think there's ever been a curriculum you have for science or social studies unless it's specifically written for Ohio that would cover all Ohio content for science and social studies.
So, and I checked that on the website in terms of, so by stating this, is this going to give our kids, our students, access to Ohio-specific current events, if you will? Yes, is this a weekly, a monthly publication that it focuses specifically, it's almost like a Ohio, we had our Ohio history class as well when most of us went to school, and our local civics classes.
Yeah.
So is that what we're talking about here? It's an Ohio-based supplement that will allow our students to become better informed and better citizens of the state of Ohio.
So they just revised the science weeklies to have like a specifically for Ohio, an edition specific to Ohio. It's something that is put out weekly. Current events, it's not like a current events like, like a time for kids or anything like that. Because not all of our science and social studies standards are around current events too. So it's going to cover all of those standards. They just have reformatted the social studies as well.
Okay, and excuse me, the quantities here, seeing the number of classes, the number of items that are being ordered. This is also online, correct? This is not just the print version?
Yes, so the principals, I talked to the principals, you can have two options. You can have online only, or you can do online and print. So we have 3 of the buildings, 3 of the principals wanted both online and print for their staff, and then 3 of them wanted just online only for their staff. Because some of them were utilizing the online portion more so than they were utilizing the print portion. So, just trying to be fiscally responsible, didn't want to buy the print for teachers who weren't using it.
Okay, and I guess hopefully my last question on this then is, and I apologize for the questions tonight, but I was out of town all last week and been working since I got back. So, was the staff questioned about this in terms of who made the decision, and is this something we need? Is this something we want? Is this something we have to
I
have?
know that some of the principals talk with their staff, just based on conversations I have with them. I cannot guarantee that all of them talk with their staff. I don't know what the process, I asked the principals and let them take it from there, so I can't speak for all of them.
Okay, and this is a 1 year?
Correct.
That's correct? Okay. All right, and knowing what's coming down the pipe in terms of funding, and we're going to have to make decisions, that's why I want to make sure that, because we don't want to get used to and get comfortable with things that we are not going to be able to afford down the line. But I guess with the information I just received, knowing it's a 1 year, it is CARES Act, it is Ohio-based, I just wanted to make sure, and I'll do this for the foreseeable future, just to make sure that this is not something that CKLA, that I was reassured that we wouldn't need to supplement it left and right. So I promise I will continue to ask questions to make sure that that's not.
Usage reports throughout the year too, and see what kind of usage that there is.
That'd be fantastic. Gotcha.
We have that available.
Okay, and we've talked with the, was it the Gizmo or Quiz, or whatever it was, I don't know. So, and that's what we need to find out to make a good, sound decision, financially speaking.
And I think Lisa mentioned in our curriculum meeting, and we were talking about standards-based grade cards, which is what we are transitioning to here in our district. And so I'm looking at the possibility of the alignment as well with what we're actually evaluating our kids on, as far as these that are specific to Ohio. Am I correct in what you stated at the curriculum meeting, that this would facilitate evaluating our kids using that standard-based grade card?
Yes, absolutely. And then science and social studies will be a little bit different when we're reporting out. Teachers can, kind of choose whether they're going to report out by the domains, like each quarter, because, the way that we kind of have talked about it is that some teachers might really align their science and social studies units around CKLA, where some might still have a separate science and social studies block. So we want to leave that option available for them, so if they're reporting out, the teachers have some autonomy around that.
Can I do a follow-up? I didn't know if you had another.
Yeah,
Okay,
no.
so, and you even mentioned it before, and it was mentioned numerous times with CKLA. I asked Steve if he had heard about the whole CKLA Wonders thing, and now he's getting introduced to it. Is it safe to say then that CKLA Social Studies and Science, it was the background knowledge, correct? So is it much more general introduction to those two content areas, whereas this would provide specific alignment to the state standards?
I'd say it's broad.
Like, for instance, one of our standards in social study is long, long ago. So, it's very broad, and whereas we all might have picked the same topic, like it teaches MCKLA through kings and queens. So, it's just a different way to look at things instead of always teaching the same. I always give the example of, when we were doing Literacy Collaborative, it was fall time, so it seemed like the big books and stuff that we had, everyone taught pumpkins, they taught spiders, they taught apples. Our kids are experts at those topics, so this just gives them a broader range of items that they can learn the same content through, but through different topics, is what CKLA does.
It's going to hit some things that are consistent,
Yeah,
which is fine.
Yeah, that's, I'm definitely okay with that.
Great.
Okay.
Can I say something to that too? CKLA.
No, sorry. This
Yeah, I
is
don't
a
wanna
business
overstep.
meeting.
Yeah, I
Sorry.
don't want to, sorry. But,
All right.
okay, thank you. Thank you for that.
I can't get audio if you're not using microphones.
Okay.
Right, so,
This is going to be nothing.
all right.
Kelly, go ahead.
All right, so we're going to call the roll? We're going to call the roll, please.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. All right, we're going to go on to item AA. Item AA is Apex for the dollar amount of $30,337.40. It is budgeted through CARES Act. Superintendent recommends an agreement between Marion City Schools and Edmentum for online courses for 6 through 12 alternative learning environment. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
And I'll
Second.
All right. Discussion, please.
And I'll keep this brief. This is just another thing where I want to get this on record. I was teaching when we used Apex. I know it's very much involved, you could say it's the bedrock perhaps of credit recovery. I want to make sure that Marion City Schools does not end up like the school district in Oakland, California, New Rochelle, New York, San Diego, California, and I'm sure that there are many others, where Apex has been abused, where students have received credit for courses when the entire coursework was not completed. It wasn't the coursework, it was actually just an exam. It opens itself up to fraud very easily. If you ask students about, hey, I know how to get the answers for Apex, it doesn't take very long. And I am in no way making accusations about our district with this, but I just want us to be careful because there is such an opportunity for it to be abused, that this is something that we definitely need to make sure that we have academic integrity, that a diploma from Harding High School means something on the street, that it is not simply a computer program where you click a couple buttons, you do a search in Google, you copy it, you paste it in, and you're good to go. And I know that there have been some measures taken to alleviate some of that, but also in terms of, and I know that this has been done, I believe, for the summer school in terms of when students take tests, they will be proctored now. You know, the teachers will be present. It's just something that I want to draw our attention to, that we need to keep an eye on this just to make sure that it is being used the way that it's intended to be used. So.
And I think I talked with you about my personal job. I look through a lot of student transcripts from a lot of districts in Central Ohio. And so you do see those recovery types of courses. And I think we need to be careful, like you said, that our students are actually learning what they need to learn and just not speeding through curriculum and getting credit for it. So it is point well taken, and that's what I hope our district aspires to more, because I'm surprised when I see student transcripts that are 0.9 and they've somehow managed to graduate from high school. So we need to do better for our students need to do better for us. And APEX is a great tool, but it needs to not be abused. So I appreciate your comments. So, all right. That being said, call the roll, please.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. Motion carried. Go on to item EE, the nutrition group. I'm not sure about that dollar amount, $2.
That was my question.
Okay. And I had looked at that too, so yes. So let's get a motion to approve.
So moved.
Scott?
Did you move?
Yeah.
Yep. And-
I'll second.
Okay. Discussion.
Yeah, is that a per meal?
It's a per meal.
Okay, gotcha.
Okay. Awesome.
And how long of a contract?
1 year.
1 year.
It's a 5-year length with annual renewals.
Okay.
So if you go through a year and you were not satisfied or didn't work out or whatever, we can terminate. And that cost includes all food, all supplies, and 2 people helping to supervise.
And this is pending approval by ODE?
Yes, so the contract is at ODE right now being reviewed. They have to approve.
Can we get, doesn't have to be tonight, can we get a projected number based on last year, I guess, in terms of what that $2 per meal comes out to
Sure
per
can.
year? Okay, gotcha.
Yep.
All right, thank you. That's all I have.
All right. All right. Call the roll, please.
Mr. Weibling?
Yes.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. Motion carried. Item GG, equity audit. This is for $55,000. Budget source is, I'm guessing that's Title IV rural schools, maybe?
That's Title V.
Title V?
Yeah, close.
I was so close. Title V. Superintendent recommends entering into an agreement with Mosaic Education Network for an equity audit. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll
Second? Oops, go ahead.
Go ahead, Scott.
Second.
Okay, discussion, please.
For the $55,000 amount, this is through the Ohio State University, correct? Mosaic Group is affiliated with?
Oh, I read that a while ago.
Correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't know anything about it.
It's-
There is none, or did she teach for?
No, she's connected to Ohio State.
Okay.
She's done some work for Central Ohio districts.
Okay.
Same type of equity audits.
Gotcha. Okay, so it's a that answered question. Thank you. Okay. Also, Mr. Ratliff had reached out to me this morning. He apologizes for not being here. He is now on family vacation. And he asked that I read a statement concerning this one with the equity audit, and I'd like to do my own comments after. We have discussed this. Mr. Jackson and I tried to set up a meeting. I was unable to meet on the days he could. And as far as Mr. Ratliff is concerned, these are his words, not mine. I've had conversations with Johnny Jackson regarding the lack of equity in our schools and the need to fix this problem. Also, I've told Mr. Jackson that I am not in favor of a $55,000 equity audit. This is another example of the needless and wasteful spending that our district loves to do. This audit will produce nothing for our district. When you look at what we are getting, the audit company will do a survey of teachers, administration, staff, and students. Well, I trust Mr. Jackson to know the appropriate questions to ask, and Board Member Weibling can show us how to do a survey, and he gets into other stuff. Additionally, the equity audit will help us with discipline policies and dress code policies. This board has done nothing to address discipline policies since March. Ms. McKay and Ms. Dyer just informed us at the last minute they are not interested in addressing the dress code policy. Does this mean that we get a discount in the equity audit, since the audit need not cover these two areas? Further, the equity audit would help with the gifted program selection policies, but since we just riffed the gifted director, we seem to no longer have a gifted program nor a direction for the gifted program. Again, does this mean that we get a discount in the equity audit? Simply put, this audit is nothing more than a money grab for this organization. We already know that we have equity issues. We have addressed this by forming an equity department of one. We have put Mr. Jackson in charge of it. We have given him no real decision-making power, no staff, no money. Yet we wonder why we have a problem with equity. It's clear we do, and it's clear that we have Mr. Jackson who eagerly wants to do something about it. As such, since this board was willing to spend $55,000 for an equity audit, I'm asking Mr. Weibling to make a motion and other members to support it. The motion is, instead of spending $55,000 as recommended by resigned Superintendent Dr. Iarussi for an equity audit, we take the $55,000 and give it to the equity department to fund equity programs for our kids. This money can then be used by Mr. Jackson with oversight by the superintendent and the board to fund programs that he feels are needed by Marion City Schools. It's time to get serious about programs for our children and quit wasting money on an audit that we will not use. We already know that equity is a problem here. Mr. Jackson knows where to start with solving some of our equity problems. Let's trust him with the job we have asked him to do and give him this funding to start doing it. It's time to get serious about equity, not just waste money on more bureaucracy on doing surveys. And that was the end of his letter. Okay? This is how, and I've got to be honest, how I feel. Mr. Jackson's name has been mentioned to me. I didn't have the chance to teach him or coach him directly, okay? But I have never heard his name mentioned in any other way than extraordinary. An up-and-comer who is, and then when you hear, then he's going through school and he's getting degree after degree after degree, and then guess what does he do? He comes back home. That's rare. That's what we want. We have somebody who knows Marion, somebody who's talented, somebody who we gave this position, we gave him his own department. I would much rather see, and I agree with Mr. Ratliff, the $55,000 go to stay local, to fund our own equity department, to fund our own director, put our trust and our faith and our confidence in his hands. If he deems it to be used as, hey, the kids could use this program tomorrow, so be it. Or, hey, I need some help in this department. I need support. If I could just get one other staff member, so it's not just me. Use the money for that. I think it's time that we trust our local talent in Marion, people who already know what the problems are. They know where the problems originate, and I know they've got ideas on how to fix them. So I do move to make a counter motion that instead of allotting this $55,000 to an outside company who's going to come in and do surveys, that we keep the $55,000 in-house. We keep it in Marion. We asked Mr. Johnny Jackson how he thinks it would best be spent, and we go from there.
Ooh, that was a lot.
I agree.
You know, I don't know how unorthodox that is to have a statement from a board member that's not here to be read at a board meeting. This is like my second meeting, so I'm learning things, and I'll definitely have to use that when I'm not in attendance to make a statement.
And it's not a proxy vote by any stretch.
No.
So, yeah.
So, okay, so that's one thing. The second thing is we have been advocating for Johnny Jackson to, or not just Johnny Jackson, it goes way back to Sean Jackson.
He
when
hired
Sean
me.
Jackson
Yeah.
was in this district to do more as far as equity, diversity, and inclusion was concerned. We have been advocating for that. To me, I'm going to invite you to speak, Johnny, because you and I meet frequently about the issues of equity. I do believe, though, that this was Mr. Jackson's recommendation that we need to start somewhere. Everything needs a baseline. Johnny does an amazing job. Johnny's just one person. When we have an issue that is racial, call Johnny. When we have an issue about books, call Johnny. When we have something, recruitment, call Johnny. Johnny does need some support. But Johnny, I would like for you to share the importance of an equity audit, specifically what you and I talked about and what you texted and emailed me.
Thank you to Mr. Weibling, Ms. Dyer. I think it's important to actually give some historical context first. It's this year is 68 years since this Brown versus Board of Education motion to desegregate schools. So knowing that black students really needed a high quality education happened in Topeka, Kansas. I think it's important to start there and think about how long that took from 1954 to then you get 1965, which is the Civil Rights Act. So that historical context is very important. So we're here today to really think about, like, how do students of color and also how do black students experience school? So when it comes to academics, when it comes to discipline, when it comes to if they feel included and belong in school, that's super important there. So the other thing is, you know, in our district we have pillars, and I help co-lead with some amazing people our leadership pillar. And that leadership pillar, we look at belonging, staff belonging, and student belonging. In our district, we're about 26% students of color. When it comes to staff of color, we are what we might call ethnically mismatched. So it would be great for our district to actually match the ethnic makeup of our district. So if we have 27% students of color, it would be great to have that type of diversity and representation.
And we lost Kay Brown this year, and did we replace that staff person? And we lost also custodial. So when staff of color leave, we don't replace them. But go ahead.
So I think you make a good point, Mrs. Dyer. Like, I came up during the Growing Our Own era, so.
I mean, we didn't lose her. She didn't die. She retired.
Right. She went on to a better retirement place, right? So it is that. It is both, like, when we have quality educators of color, black educators particularly, retire, how do we do that type of recruitment, and how do we place that emphasis? Many of you, I think that Mr. McKinnis, Ms. McKay, that you too were a part of June of 2020 when we passed our educational equity and social justice resolution. And a part of that resolution was to really look at the experiences of African American students and students of color. Well, this equity audit would help us do that. And last point, I think it is a both and. Investing in an equity audit would help us get, as Ms. Dyer said, a baseline, but then the further investment to make sure we do the work of looking at students of color, academic belonging, social belonging, and those type of things. I think that this investment and other investments is a both and type of thing. So, and I would love to help steward that. But this work, I guess last point, this work is never alone. So a lot of people mention my name. I have to say that a lot of my colleagues that I work across with, teachers, with administrators, with community members, a lot of this work is collective. So I'm never doing this work alone. I'm always in conversation with other people.
Yes,
appreciate that.
Can I ask a question then?
Sure.
You mentioned further investment. So this would give us the baseline, which you've said before. And I know in the past that certain statistics have been given by Dr. Irucci in terms of, well, do we have discipline that's being handed out? unfairly based on that. And as far as I know, the numbers existed because they were quoted. And that's where I know I think of you and I think of Greg Menzie and the ability to crunch the numbers, to ask the questions, to look where nobody else knows where to look. So in terms, and that's how I feel about that in terms of the numbers, I think they're already there, and I think we have qualified people who can get those numbers for us instead of outsourcing it. What other further investments are we talking then? So if this were to happen, $55,000, they do the equity audit. Then what are we talking about in terms of investments? Can more $55,000 investments for other things, or if you could fill us in on that?
Yeah, so one of the things that you and I have talked about was connecting with historically black colleges, that type of investment and those partnerships that need maintenance team. So we have Central State that's not far from here, also Wilberforce that's not far from here, and also the multiple colleges of education that we can partner with. Those investments take time to work out. But then we also have an important need to nurture teachers of color and administrators of color when they come into our district. I had such a wonderful relationship with Ramel Mitchell, who was who's a former principal, black principal over at McKinley, and it would be nice to have that type of program where we nurture talent and we keep them here in Marion. So it's both local talent and then also talent that chooses to come here.
So are you mentioning a fiscal investment, a true monetary investment, or that and as well as a focus? Like we need to invest our attention at these.
It'd be both.
Okay.
Yeah,
gotcha.
it'd be a both and type of thing. So we've got to sit down and talk a little bit more about what that looks like.
Yeah. And you mentioned growing our own. And if anybody read the Marion Star today with Sean Robinson's, where it talked about her being a business consultant, she mentioned growing our own. And many of the people that I interact with talk about the importance of that program. You're a participant and a graduate of growing our own. And I think it may not be in our purview to try to organize something like that, because nostalgically we can look back, and in Marion City Schools we had a whole bunch of things. I've been around this game a long time, and we had something at Ohio State, which was, anybody know Chuck Jones, who was a product of that as well. So to me, the energy poured into something like this equity audit would bring a great type of focus on some of the things that we can do in our district. So, and if you had that $55,000, no, I'm kidding.
That's where I'm not kidding.
What would you do?
No, that's what I'd like to see happen. I'll be honest with that. So when you eventually call roll,
but he recommended this.
I understand,
Yeah,
but I want to give Mr. Jackson the opportunity to
let's just work him to
step
death.
out.
I mean, let's just work one.
No, I don't want to just work him to death. I want to get things focused and let's fund the department. And I know he wears too many hats already. That's my life. That's your life. We know how that is. Yeah. So.
All right.
I think he's saying he needs some help.
All right. I just want to make my decision known for the reason behind it.
Yeah.
So. Okay.
All right. All right, so we have a motion, and it's been moved and seconded. Veronica, please call the roll.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
No.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes, motion carried. All right. All righty, now we're on to motion for executive session. So I need a motion for executive session.
We need one.
Do we need one? Do we need to pull anything out?
No.
I'm good.
We good?
Okay.
All righty.
For personnel?
Excuse me. So we come to item 11, new business consent calendar. All matters listed under the consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted by the board in one motion in the form listed below. There will be no discussion of these items prior to the time the board votes on the motion unless members of board, staff, or public request specific items to be discussed and removed from the consent agenda. So do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second. All right, call the roll.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Motion carried. All right. Excuse me. All right. All righty, we come to item 12. We do have two special meetings of the board. These are also to have presentations for search firms. Tonight, after this meeting, we will have finding leaders. I know you guys are back there. And then we have our other meetings listed. All these meetings that are listed will be in this room. And committee reports. Do we have any exciting news on committees? I do have a question.
I'd recommend that hearing about the fireworks and the sound system and so forth at the high school, or at the stadium, that maybe we refer that to extracurricular committee. Would that be the appropriate committee to study that and talk about that?
I agree.
Okay.
Good.
All right. So we'll refer that to extracurricular. Fireworks.
Let's go.
All right. I had a quick question about buildings and grounds. I know there was an article in the paper about the Lincoln Park getting a grant for $100,000. How does that impact us going forward? Do you know?
I don't know.
No?
Can't speak to that.
All righty. I will find out and report back. All right. And I don't think we had anything to do with finance or policy.
Kelly?
Yes, ma'am.
Just a correction on curriculum. You and
Yep. You're on.
I'm on curriculum now.
Yep.
And
Tara.
with Mr. McInnes, and so appreciated the curriculum meeting that we had the other day. It was so very insightful. I think we got a lot of information on a lot of things, specifically testing, so I appreciate being invited and look forward to the next time we can sit down and talk about curriculum. Looking forward to that math.
That's what I was just, so can I ask a general question from the
Looking
committee
forward.
then? Because we are approaching, as you just said, looking forward to math.
It's
My hands
good.
are already sweating.
Okay, are we planning to take a look at the process by which we are going
It's
to?
already.
Okay,
It's
as compared
already-
to how we did Wonders and
It's already taken
CKLA, there
care
are those two
of.
phrases.
Yep, Lisa,
Okay.
if you want to talk to her or
Absolutely,
whatever, but
yes.
she has done an amazing job of doing the prep work, and we heard about it, didn't we, at the curriculum meeting, and I have no qualms that we won't have bumpy roads
Okay.
into this adoption.
Could you look at those committees and tell me if they're correct?
I think they're all correct
Is the only
except
one-
for the curriculum.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
I think if you have questions about the process, probably the appropriate person now is Mrs. Obadier to talk about that.
Yep, I got it.
Okay. And we're going to refer to extracurricular, the issue with the fireworks. All right. Okay, at this time, we have item 14, which is our Finding Leaders presentation regarding our superintendent search. So I want to welcome these gentlemen. And do you need anything? Okay, great. And you're a River Valley graduate, right?
No.
No?
not me.
Him?
They do know your wife.
Okay.
They work together.
Oh, yeah? Yeah.
Great,
yeah.
thank you.
I know,
Thanks.
the old timers club. Yeah, thank you.
Well, thank you for this opportunity. Wanted to start by introducing ourselves, and I'll let Dale start.
I'm Dale McVeigh. Originally retired about 9 years ago from the Hilliard City Schools, where I was superintendent for 14 years. Prior to that, I was at Licking Heights for 4 years. Been in Central Ohio since 1994. Done a number of things since I retired in the consulting business. Worked with superintendents of districts around the state, and currently am one of those jobs is working with finding leaders, trying to attract top talent to bring the districts to lead them effectively. So it's nice to be here this evening. Nice to see a familiar face with Mr. Massey, who last time I knew was getting out of superintendency. Went and ran Westerville for a while. I mean, not really, but you were probably in John's deal.
We reeled him back in.
You were very fortunate to reel this guy back in. So you're in great hands. Thank you.
My name is Ed Vittardi. I'm a retired superintendent from North Royalton City Schools. Spent most of my career in northeastern Ohio. Actually, all of my career, mostly as a middle school principal. That's where I was prior to being an assistant superintendent, then a superintendent. They changed retirement rules in 2013. Kind of made retirement I think I'd be really good at retirement. My wife didn't agree, so I'm still working. Actually, my day job is I'm a Catholic schools principal, so it's actually my grandchildren go to school there. It's hard to say no to a man in a collar, so it's been a great opportunity to be on both sides, private and public education. Done a number of searches together, even with Dale in Central Ohio. Recently, we've done Hannah is an example. One we did together, Reynoldsburg. Dale's doing Licking Heights right now. We've done a number of others in the area, but we'll walk you through. I know you've had a long meeting already, but we're going to make it easy and just focus on this one sheet. It's about 3 or 4 in, and I really believe that this is the heart of your superintendent search. You will see in this scope and sequence that we look at, relationships are at the center. You're going to hear from some other good search firms, and they do wonderful work. I think, however, what separates finding leaders and why folks choose finding leaders is the center circle, and that's relationships. Our whole search process is centered around that. Relationships start with the fact of the choice that you make, a relationship that we make with the Board of Education, because you have a choice. As a Board of Education, you could just go and not pay 1 penny and go and do your own search. That's one extreme. The other extreme is where finding leaders is, and that's if you want the most engaged process, where you want to engage the community to be a part of your search process. We work hard with you to not only get to what the board is looking for in their next superintendent, but also what your community is looking for in your next superintendent, and also what your staff is looking. So we do a great deal of work to engage the entire community, and there's a lot of legwork on our part to do that. And during that process, we create relationships. We get to know who you are as a board. You're comfortable talking to us. In those focus groups, the community begins being comfortable with us as we go through the process, and you'll see how that part goes on. So when we start, it is an engagement. The very first part, actually, I guess I should start at the top, is critical decisions. You do have a critical decision. Yes, there is a time to save money, and I know school districts are trying to save money. We would argue the superintendent selection is not one of them, for the reason that you're asking someone to run a school district that, I don't know Marion's budget, I gotta believe 75, where are you, about 75 million?
100, about 100 now.
About $100 million. So you're asking someone to run a $100 million business. So I think it would call for some investment in the Board of Education to work with us or any search firm to help you go through this, because you don't go through this all the time. And we certainly do, and we can explain why we would do it that way. So it is a critical decision. You have the first critical decision is a search firm, and then if so, eventually you're going to come back around to that critical decision is who's your next superintendent. We would announce it the minute that you would tell us that we have your search, we're able to announce it throughout the entire country to whatever depths you want. Certainly in the era of 2022, it's not hard to get the word out about a superintendency, and especially if you're looking at timing it just right, which it appears as though you are, that you're looking into next year, we have a chance to certainly make that announcement and get it out. And there's many means that we can do that. Just the announcement itself, when it posts, we go through K-12 JobSpot and AppleTrack, which automatically goes throughout the country. So not just Ohio, but beyond that. We then start the engagement process. The engagement process starts with a number of focus groups. And you'll tell us how many focus groups you want. You know, it is teachers, it's your support staff, it's your administrators, it's your business community, it's your PTO, it's your church groups, it's whoever you tell us to talk to in groups, we're going to go in there and talk to them and ask them the same questions about what they're looking for in the next superintendent. We believe that's important because that's what helps us to look for your next superintendent. Okay, it isn't about getting the best superintendent. It's about getting the best superintendent for Marion. Okay, which may not be the same one 2 communities over, 1 community over, or any place else. But the way that we can build that profile is based on those focus groups. So we then go out, because a superintendent is a little bit different than a lot of jobs. They don't generally just go out and fill out an application and say, I want to be your superintendent. They're busy doing a good job, and it takes recruitment. And that's where the next piece of relationships come in. As former superintendents, there's 30 of us throughout the state of Ohio that are constantly looking for talent. And folks that might want to be, they may not even know that Marion might be the place for them to go, but based on the profile that you set, we're able to make that phone call, and that's something a Board of Education can't do. Obviously, we can pick up the phone and say, here's the profile, we think you'd be a good fit for this position. The recruitment is a big part because good people throughout the state of Ohio need to be contacted, okay, very often to build a pool. We notice if someone does not use a search firm, which doesn't happen very often, you'll hear of 12, 13 candidates. We will not only probably have 30 to 35, there will probably be another 30 or 35 that we've contacted and inquired with to see if they might be interested in your position. So that's a big part when we talk about the recruitment process. The other thing that is different that we believe in is being with you every step of the way. So you're busy doing your day jobs or you're tied up. The fact is when we're setting up the interviews, what we will do prior to that is we will have interviewed a number of candidates. Generally, if you're at the beginning of the search process, we'll interview anywhere from 15 to 20 folks. Some of those interviews may not be very good, but you didn't have to sit through them. That's our job, to be there for those 15 or 20 interviews. Our job is to recommend to you the candidates that we think best fit the profile that was established, that we established together with you as a Board of Education. So with that profile, we say, here are all the people that applied. We're very transparent. Here are all the people that applied. Here are all the people that we interviewed. And here are the 6, could be 5, could be 7, that we think are worthy of an interview by the Board of Education because we think they fit the profile for this superintendency. From that, let's say it's 6 people that you've determined that these are the people you want to look at. We'll set up those interviews. We will have already done due diligence. We won't bring anybody to you that 1, we haven't interviewed, and 2, we haven't done due diligence on. Okay, and then after that fact, when we have those six interviews, we will be with you for the interviews, not to do the interviews. That's your job. But we're going to keep you on schedule. We're going to help you to process the interviews, okay? Not to tell you who you like and who you don't like, but to help you process the interview, to put you through a good process to keep you going through that in a very succinct manner, but also in a very objective manner, and also, quite honestly, also a legal manner to make sure that you stay, in the right lane. We'll be bringing people in and out during that process. Maybe there's follow-up questions that you have. We will be working with the candidates throughout the process. You don't have to worry about that. All we do, you tell us the dates you want, we set up the interviews, and we're here to help coordinate. From those 6 folks, could be 5, could be 7, you would narrow it down to 2. We recommend 2. Occasionally it isn't 2, but usually that's a very good number. The due diligence you would do again is we would give you a whole list of due diligence for you to reach out even deeper into the 2 final candidates that you have. Okay, and we will give you a whole list of who, and these are not your references. Anyone can give you 3 good references, right? This is, you know, and we know we work with some boards that I believe they might have gone and talked to the candidate's first grade teacher. I think they went all the way back as far as they could. It's an important decision. You want to talk to people that aren't listed. It could be people in the community. It could be your fellow board members in the district that they work in. You may want to go back 2 or 3 districts to hear. So the due diligence is a big part of that. And then the last phase, and I say last in quotes, is stakeholder engagement. What we recommend is a process, and again, it's up to you. Any part of this can be altered, but we'll recommend to you the stakeholder engagement. The final nights of interviews, we do 2 interview nights. Each candidate has a night. We ask you to invite stakeholders in, you know, administrators, teachers, those focus groups again, a handful of those, about 5 of those folks. Your candidate would be here. One of those members of each of those communities would be right here to do the interview. The Board of Education will sit and listen to those candidates engaging with your community. All of the stakeholders that they would be working with as your next superintendent. After that, you could have a dinner. If you do 2 nights, you could have dinner to socialize with them, to say, hey, is this someone, we're going to spend a lot of time together. Is this someone we like working with? How do we get along? It could be with their significant other. And then the last part is your final interview. And that final interview will be based a lot on what you might have heard, 1, in due diligence, and then 2, in that stakeholder interview that they had with the community. And you do that for the 2 nights. And then hopefully at the end of that, and hopefully it's always been the case, you have all the information you need. You've done due diligence, you've heard your community, not that it's their job to select your next superintendent, but you've heard their input on things that they liked, things that might have concerned them, or things that they want you to dig deeper on when you have your final interview. And last but not least, we always ask the stakeholders, is this a fit? Because sometimes you could love everything about the candidate, but you don't see them fitting in Marion. And that may be the most important of the 3 questions that we ask, but we will facilitate all of that. And then at the conclusion of the 2nd night, we would stay with you as long as you have to process this entire thing, because we will go through each of those nights, and you come up with your candidate, okay? We can even handle the communication. We would have shared with you, if I back up to the very beginning, we would have done a checklist with you. As soon as you said, Fighting Leaders, we want you to do the search, we'll do a checklist with you to build out all of those things for the profile and start the focus groups and start doing that. But once we do the checklist, we've established the financial range, the types of candidates you think might be interested, things like that, so that when you get to the end, you will already have established what pay range you're going to be in, and the fact that when you call them that night, that he or she says yes, and they don't start the negotiation process. Some other folks who do the search process then turn it over to you, and now you have to negotiate after you've already determined the superintendent. We've done that for you already. You've given us some parameters, and we got them to the point that if you call them that night and offer them the job, we know they're in a position to say yes, because they know all the parameters that are going to be offered. And then I listed the last piece. I said we're done, but we're not done. One of the things that Finding Leaders that we do is transition. We will give a transition plan to your next superintendent. We will work with your next superintendent, because you know what? We've been there with all those focus groups. We've become very comfortable with you. Whatever consultants are working with you, we get to know you very well. And because we get to know you very well, we can help the next superintendent in that relationship. We even do a board retreat where the next superintendent and the board get together, and we facilitate talking about how you're going to work together. Okay, what's the superintendent's job? What's the board's job? How do you want to be communicated with? And that's different for everyone. So we'll give them the transition plan. We can even implement the transition plan, but we stay together with them. If we are the group that you select, I will tell you that whoever your next superintendent is, we will stay in contact with. This is something that's very personal to us and our group. We may see you at OSBA. We want to see how things are going. We're going to be checking in with them regularly. All the superintendents, I do between 6 to 8 a year. I talk to all of those superintendents throughout the year. How are things going? As a board, the relationship is one that you could pick up the phone and say, you're 2 months in, hey, can you help us with this? You know, we're seeing this, what does it look like? Okay? What I would tell you, the last part that you're going to go through this, and I know you've had a long meeting already, is we gave you a sample timeline, assuming you wanted to wait until next year, I believe. The good news you have is you could have the full pool of candidates following a proposed timeline that you see in December. You would start in December, that's that checklist we talk about, and we walk you all the way through. Now this can be adapted. One of the things we're going to ask you in the checklist, do you have internal candidates? Okay, and we can adapt the process. The contract can be adapted. If you wanted to do a modified version of this, then obviously the financial arrangement would be different if you wanted to modify the process. If you have internal candidates, I will share with you the finding leaders way that we would suggest. If you have internal candidates, if you're interim superintendent, if you have 3 other internal candidates that have superintendent licenses, we suggest that you modify the search process, which obviously would be a savings on your part as well, that we would recommend you do the focus groups, go through that process. If the internal candidates, we could interview the internal candidates, come back to the board and say, we think they fit the profile, they may be worth looking at, and then maybe the board only needs to go as far as the internal candidates. And you don't have to go through the rest of the process. And then you could also consider, do you want to do the whole stakeholder process or do you want to adapt it? And that's one of the things that we'll do. Although forced to give you a contract, we gave you a price, we gave you a timeline, and we gave you a contract, all of that can be adapted based upon the process that you want to. As I said at the beginning, relationships are what it's about. We would be talking a lot, and if you said, how about this, can we do this, what do you want it to look like? We will make it fit for you so that you get the best superintendent. This is truly your search. We believe in our process, and we believe, and we will give you a guarantee that for the, if say it does not go well, and the superintendent search does not go well within the first year, and you're separating from your superintendent, I've not had to honor that yet, but we would do the search for free. Don't think that will happen, and the reason I don't think that would happen is we've built in too many things across the process. We've engaged the community, we've engaged you, we've talked to your staff. We know what you're looking for in the superintendent, so the odds of it being a bad fit, we've minimized significantly to make sure that we're going to have a good fit. Anything I missed now? Questions you might have?
Apparently, you've assumed that we don't go to the market until December. What's the pool like now if you went there in the summer of '22? Is that a possibility?
We did give you another one, I think, that we just finished with Licking Heights. Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm currently working on Licking Heights, and use that as everything. We're really pleased with the quality of the pool we have, and we're going to wrap that up this week, Lord willing. But I will tell you that timing impacted who was willing to move forward, because they don't, at this stage of the game, they really didn't feel comfortable leaving their board, leaving the district. Had this been in January, I'm very confident we'd had a different pool. I don't know if it would have been more impressive than the pool that we wound up with, but there were some key people that I had spent a lot of time with that ultimately just couldn't make that work in their world because it was already June. So it's a tough market right now. It's typically a tough market this late in the game. It's even tougher now with the climate being what it is. And people are somewhat protective of, if they have a good job, they have a good board, helping them understand why this is a good move for them. It's probably not going to happen in June. It's probably going to need some time.
The exception would obviously be if it's internal.
Right.
If you wanted us to modify a process to do something internal, the external, I agree totally with Dale. Once we get past, we gave you the perfect scenario that you're one of the first ones out on the market, and you're getting the full pool of candidates, and folks haven't moved from one district to another yet. But if it's internal, that could take, obviously that could take place because you're dealing with only your folks. And quite honestly, I can, full disclosure, I was hired in a Finding Leaders search, and it was an internal. It was myself and another candidate. They interviewed us. They did the focus groups. Finding Leaders interviewed both of us. The board said both of us were qualified candidates. They took both of us to the board, and the board ended up selecting me. So that could have taken place anytime, right? Because we were both present employees. But to Dale's point, if you're going out and you're thinking that your next candidate may be an outside person, right now, just the type of process that we'd have to use to do a really good process, what do focus groups look like in the end of June or July as far as trying to get teachers in, support staff, trying to get your community that is on vacation and things like that? It's a little more difficult, a little more challenging.
So your recommendation is to wait till December?
Unless you think you haven't, unless you want to do the internal part of it sooner. Actually, what I might do, quite honestly, you selected us. I think we use this time maybe to have the board kind of get on the same page about what you're looking for, because I think that's important. So you could use the time of, we could already know that we're going to hit the ground running in December, because even if we posted in September or October, people aren't looking in September or October at the beginning of that's why we give you like December. But if you've already engaged with us, that doesn't mean we can't have people on our radar, in our Rolodex, that we can't be talking with you, kind of hammering it out so that we know exactly what we're looking for. Because that's going to be really important. The 5 board members, we're going to spend a lot of time with you getting you on the same page about what you're looking for in your next superintendent. Not being 5-0, we don't ever think boards have to be 5-0. The one time you should be 5-0, and we recommend, is on a superintendent. It's the most important decision. Superintendent, treasurer are really important decisions. So all 5 of you should be excited about your next superintendent. This is a time when we want all 5. And the way we can do that is by really digging down on what you're looking for, and you all agree on what that profile looks like.
And I would add about the profile, just the developing that profile and spending time with you, it's really important. We need to get to know you, because I can tell you, when we start reaching out to folks, their first question is going to be, so tell me about the board. And that's what's going to happen.
So, going to be what's the treasurer like.
But I mean, it's going to be, why is this a good job? Why is this attractive? And so we need a real understanding of that and a grasp of that, because we need to convey what you want. And in order to do that, we need to spend some time with you and hearing your thoughts.
In terms of the relationships then, and what you just alluded to, your agency getting to know us as the board, and then the treasurer and everybody that he or she would work with, how about the staff? Is there beyond the focus group questions, or is it?
And they'll be part of the stakeholder groups as well at the end.
We would recommend those focus groups aren't, I only set a select group for the final. Before that, generally, it could be the whole middle school staff, the whole high school staff. We're not excluding anybody at that point. It's totally up to you. Same way with community groups. They could be open meetings, at 7 p.m. and you put it in the newspaper. We'll work with you to make that what you want it to be. As sometimes people do invites, other times it's wide open. Very common for staff would be a staff meeting, and those people that are interested enough to come, they come. It's not mandated that they come, but if they want to come, they're there. Same way with support staff, we try to, bus driver, quite honestly, when I do a search, I like to see as many people involved in the focus groups as possible, because, that's how we know it's a fit. As Dale said, when we go out and we pick up the phone and we say, here's why it's a good job, and here's why I think it would be a good job for you, we have a really good idea of what we have. And if we've only done select people, if we've only talked to just you, or we've only talked to a couple of teachers and maybe the PTA or something like that, that's not. How about your business group? How about your government leaders, your city? Do you work together with the city? We want to see as many people as possible have the opportunity to share what they're looking for in your next superintendent. Ultimately knowing, though, it's your decision. When you took this oath, the 2 most important decisions, I know you have a lot of important decisions, the 2 most important ones are hiring your treasurer and hiring your superintendent, because everything else falls down from there.
So I have two questions. One is, does your pool of candidates like pay a fee to be a part of your particular group? So the question basically is, where do you get your pool of candidates? And the other question is, some people were questioning this presentation and the fact that we didn't involve a lot of different people as far as in the Q&A part of this. Is it something that's naturally, when you come and present, that you open it like wide open, or is your primary audience when you do a presentation just the board? So your pool, and who do you present to?
Two good questions. The second one I'll take first. This is ultimately your decision, okay, as a board. The community has elected you to do this. It's hard. They don't know necessarily the job of a superintendent. Maybe you didn't even before you became a board member, the job of a superintendent and of a treasurer. They should be involved, but on the selection of the firm, it's hard for them to determine that. You got to feel comfortable with the firm. Whichever firm you select that you'd be comfortable with, because you're going to be, the relationship's going to be with us or whomever you select. So I would say, I've never done a presentation other than being in an open community meeting, but never has it been that they've been a part of the process to select who the team would be. And the first question regarding, that's more like a headhunter. No, they don't pay a fee to join us. Actually, the relationships that we have, because they're former superintendents, they're former board members, they're throughout the state of Ohio. They know folks, and they might say at a meeting, hey, if there's an opening, or I might be looking for this, or we know who they are and we know that they might be a good fit, we're recruiting them. So we're not a headhunting group that we're finding them and trying to piece them, because that would defeat what we believe our process is. Our process, because then we'd have this pool, and then we try matching our pool with what you want. We do it the opposite way around. You build the profile, then we go out to try to find the people that would be a good match for that profile.
In my prior experience, confidentiality is a big thing for some superintendents who are looking and don't want their district to know they're looking and so forth. How do you handle that confidentiality, and when does it become public for them that their name is in the hat?
Well, and I'll tell you, when I started working with finding leaders, that's one of my biggest concerns, is making sure we protect either sitting superintendents or, who in the early stages of that. I mean, I led a search a year ago, very protective of the names until we needed to disclose them, because many of them are not going to stay in. If they're going to become page one news, there's not. And so you need to understand that's the reality in today's world. And so we work for you. That's the bottom line. With that said, we also have to support potential candidates and help them navigate those waters so that it doesn't reverberate back on them when they go back to their home district. And so that's a choice ultimately they have to make, and I respect that, but I want it to be their decision as to when they make that decision.
But once they would come to you, a place for sure, by the time we would recommend them to you, they know it's time. They have to have told their, so in other words, it's all prior to that, the behind the scenes group. Dale's point is a good one. If people aren't a good fit, we want to protect them. We're going to let them go before they ever come to you. So instead of giving you 55 names in a file, 20 of them, 25 of them, maybe 30 of them weren't going to be a good fit, and we're going to narrow them down. They can have the opportunity to move out because they're not going to be recommended to you as a board. So when you see 6 people in the notebook that we recommended, they know that it's now public, and they should have told everybody at that point. But just by inquiring, expressing interest, we're still feeling it out. So
on that continuum from not having a search group at all to having a search group, confidentiality, you provide a buffer for those individuals. Absolutely. Because if we don't have a search group, then their name's right out there from the beginning, and you're going to shrink your pool.
Absolutely. And what you'll automatically do, I can almost guarantee you, is it will significantly reduce any sitting superintendent. Now, you would accept an assistant superintendent or a curriculum director possibly applying for another superintendency. You certainly wouldn't want to read about it in the paper, your superintendent applying for it. So you want to know that they're a legitimate, valid candidate. What Dale said is true. We have heart-to-hearts where they say, do I really have a chance? You know, is this a good fit? Okay, like Dale said, I'd like to be able to say, I take this job. I'd like to work with this board. This is going to be a good job. This is a good job for you where you are. So that's an important piece to it. And you're right, you also can't call people. Because the minute you would call someone, hey, I think we're going to ask you in one of the first interviews, if you get beyond the internal, we're going to say, hey, are there candidates that you're interested in? And maybe someone has told Scott, you know, I heard this guy speak, you know, and he looked good. I don't know if he's going to be a good superintendent, but I think he's good. Can you look? Yeah, we'll call. We can call anybody. You can. So we can call and say, hey, would you be interested? You know, that doesn't mean that you promise them anything. But if you get involved, and that's part of it, when people come up to you, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that's the second piece to that is, they're going to come up to you in the neighborhood, and someone's going to tell you, hey, Ted, how about this guy, or how about this woman, or you know what we really need? And you could say, hey, pass that name on to Finding Leaders, and then we do that. You're not in the middle of, you know, processing that candidate or whatever you're happening. So you're able to, we tell you all the time, very easy for you to say, talk to Finding Leaders. Here's their email, here's their cell phone numbers. So you're able to do it, or you might tell us yourself. Someone tells you personally, hey, I know this woman pretty well, and she gave me this name, and I got to believe she knows what she's talking about. You may want to follow up. You can call us and tell us.
How many folks do you have in your organization that would be involved in this?
Usually when we do a search, generally there's 2 or 3 consultants that are directly involved, but you get the whole firm, in essence. All of us, as soon as we get us, you know, just because I didn't do Licking Heights doesn't mean I'm not telling Dale, hey, here's someone that I think would be a good fit. We put out what's going on so that our folks that are in the Cincinnati area or the Cleveland area, because, you know, superintendents can be mobile. So all of our group would be a part of it, but 2 or 3 of us would be working directly with you.
And how many's in the overall group?
We have 17 that are working really hard, as many as 30. Some do a little part-time, you know, just do a focus group here or something like that.
Okay.
But there's about 17 that are pretty active because of the amount of work that we do.
The confidentiality issue that Ted brought up might be one of the answers to this next question. So if we were not to choose you or another agency, what would be the 2 biggest impediments? I love that you keep bringing up the process, relationship and process. I love both of them. What would be our biggest stumbling block, or the top 2 things?
If you did your own search?
Correct. Yes, as someone who has not done this before, what's our, yeah, so what's the good, so when you're saying good luck, what are you envisioning in your mind, like Marion City is going to fall flat on their face right now during this part of the process? No, I'm asking, but I'm like, I'd want to know.
You know, we're trying to get contracts, so I'm not necessarily.
Okay. Actually, I think it's the whole circle. I think the relationships piece, the fact that you're not going to know people when they're going to reach out and want to be interested, all you're going to get is people that will apply. And you could get a good, but that's all you're going to get is people that will apply. They won't have done their homework. You haven't made sure it's a match. So I think your time and energy, I think what you've done is you've minimized, by taking a search, you've minimized your risk. It's such a big decision. It's an important decision. One, the pool won't be nearly, you know, as competitive because you haven't been able to recruit. No board can. It also becomes very political. I'll be very honest. It could be this board member's talking to this person, this board member's talking to that person, and you muck up the process. And some people get nervous. I will tell you, a lot of folks won't even enter a process with just the board doing it for fear that, to Dale's point, and we're just being transparent, that they won't be protected, you know, because they know that we've been in the chair, they know that we've done it, we know that we work for you, we have a contract with you, but we're also going to protect them. We're not going to...
That's the confidentiality part.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And I guess I would say, whether it's us, whether it's, you know, the other firms you're talking with, it's, you know, the old saying, penny wise and pound foolish. I mean, I can't imagine doing this search yourself. I think it will greatly impact your quality. And it's your decision.
Yeah.
But I just think it will be a very challenging environment to do in today's times. And I'm not saying you can't be successful, but I think sometimes you need a buffer, and you need people who do this for a living.
Wow.
I want to make sure you understand, too, Skip.
That's why I asked the question. I can tell, I thank you for considering. I can tell, it's a disturbing question, it sounds like, so that's why I'm asking it.
Well, it's really a great question, too, because what I'm afraid that some people think is when you give the search to us, we're selecting your superintendent. No, we're not. We're just putting you through the process. Okay, you're selecting the superintendent, and we're only bringing you people based on what you're telling us. So it still is, you know, the only thing you're not doing is doing the whole thing. You're still doing your superintendent search. You're still doing it.
We can direct the legwork. We can direct.
We're getting you got while you're doing your day job, we're out, you know, burning up the phone lines, talking to people, having coffee with people, saying, hey, trying to get you good candidates. While you're doing all of that, that's what our job is. And so that's what it all boils down to when you, back to Ted's question, is it's all about pool, right? The bigger the pool is, the better the pool is, the greater likelihood of you selecting an outstanding superintendent. So search time, who does the search, all of those all help determine what the pool looks like.
I like the fact that you're doing the legwork for us because we do, well, except for Tara. We have full-time jobs.
But orders, you can tell us,
right.
You're not busy.
Right.
No.
But checking references and doing that.
I heard this about this candidate. Can you follow up on it? Those are all things you can email us, call us, and we'll do all the follow-up.
I think when you're interviewing people too, I mean, it's a skill set that none of us have. I mean, I've been on interview teams, but I certainly haven't gone out and hired people. Right. So I appreciate that someone with that skill set would do that for us to protect us from legally getting in trouble. I worry about that.
Or there are some people who are saying, well, we got like 6 retired superintendents laying around in Marion. Let's just dust them off and bring them here for a year, you know, or whatever. You know, so what say you to that argument that, you know, we could just dust, they could just press their tie and just come on in?
I sort of resent the characterization.
Come on.
We sort of need dusted off.
But to your point, though, I think, let's see, you want, but we can talk to those people. If you think those are those people, still you need someone to do that piece for you, because maybe 6 of them, 5 of them really do need dusted off because they've gotten pretty rusty, right? Maybe one of them is valid and one of them's still out there. Let us do that. Let us do that for you if you think there's somebody out there. That's what I mean. We'll make the process what you want.
Yeah, so you'll do the dusting.
We'll do the dusting.
All right.
Right. Do you I'm looking at the leadership searches. Have you worked with some small urban districts like us, or?
Yeah, I would say Reynoldsburg is probably, I don't know that would be small.
It's much,
you know,
no, it's much bigger.
Garfield Heights in the Cleveland area, I think.
Like Gahanna's a mix right now.
It's Delaware.
That community has evolved.
We've done Delaware, Delaware. Some of them that you don't know if they're not in your area. I mean, Richmond Heights, you know, Wickliffe. I mean, we've either done treasurer, this isn't even the whole list, treasurer or superintendent searches in most of them. And there's others, like, we didn't do the superintendent search, but I did a board, we've done board superintendent retreats, like I did Whitehall, you know, over the course of the summer. So we do know people throughout the areas, and certainly what you're looking for in a candidate, you know, we would have had similar, every district is unique to itself, you know. We hear 2 things. One, find us someone from a like district, and then they'll say nobody's like us. So it's really, we hear that all the time. The change about someone in a like district, what we're looking for is, does their skill set match the needs of your district? That's what I think, not that I'm putting words in your mouth, but that's what you really want to know. Can we find people that will be able to match the needs that this school district has in 2022?
And you'll help us reach consensus about what those needs are.
We will help you. sure she'll listen.
Oh, well, okay.
We'll see how that works.
All right. All right. Other questions for these gentlemen? All right. Wonderful presentation. I appreciate
Seeing you.
it.
Thank you.
Safe travels home.
Thank you.
So is this is the profile that they created?
Lots to think about.
We're going to try to recruit Mr. Jackson, though.
Please don't.
Somewhere else, but I just heard something. We're always listening. when we
Oh, get your hands
That's
off
all they
him.
know.
Get your hands off of him.
Just doesn't work that way. All right. Okay. All right. Do we have a need to go into executive session? Awesome. I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
Call the roll, please.
Mr. McInnes?
Yes.
Mr. Weidling?
Yes.
Mrs. Dyer?
Yes.
Mrs. McKay?
Yes. We are now adjourned. It is 8 o'clock. Thank you for coming, everyone. Have a great evening.